Is it incompetence? Is it corruption? Is it both? What the hell is going on over there?
Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. We received a text message from our MP today that warned us that question period was very spicy, so we knew we had to do a video on question period. We haven't seen this yet, so
Let's take a look.
The Parliamentary Budget Officer has already proven that the Liberal carbon tax, just like the Prime Minister, is not worth the cost, saying the vast majority of people are worse off under a carbon pricing regime than without. This is partly because of the economic cost that the carbon tax imposes. One of our members for Winnipeg asked the PBO if the government had done an economic analysis of the cost, and he said yes, but they're blocking its release, referring to it as a gag order. Why the carbon tax cover-up?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The government holding back facts about the carbon tax?
you don't say.
Say it ain't so.
And I can guess why they're holding that information back.
I think we all can guess.
Because it doesn't tell the story that they want it to tell.
Here, we of course respect the work of the Parliamentary Budget Officer, who provides independent analysis to this government. In this instance, however, the Parliamentary Budget Officer admitted that he made a mistake with his carbon pricing reports, using incorrect analysis and modeling, which emphasizes what we've been saying all along, Mr. Speaker, that 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back from the Canada Carbon Rebate while we fight climate change. The next Canada Carbon Rebate is actually going to be arriving on the 15th of July in Canadians' bank accounts right across the country. We will continue to put money in people's pockets and fight climate.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Okay, so really, Trudeau? So you're saying that the Parliamentary Budget Officer came up with incorrect information? You mean, as Fox said, you came up with information and analysis that didn't fit your narrative. So you said, well, that's not going to work. So we're just going to have to tweak that. Give me a break.
If that was true, he would simply release the report with the real cost of the carbon tax that he's been hiding. But the Auditor General released another report showing that this Prime Minister is not worth the corruption or cost after 9 years. $123 million in spending in the Prime Minister's Green Slush Fund broke the rules. According to one of the bureaucrats involved, the entire expenditure resembles the Liberal sponsorship scandal. Will he take personal responsibility for these costs and corruption, or will he just blame others again?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has already taken measures to ensure that these programs are properly spent, that the processes are properly followed in terms of contracts. We know we need to continue to ensure value for money for taxpayers, while at the same time continuing to step up on the fight against climate change, on the creation of a green economy. That is why we continue to deliver a Canada Carbon Rebate that puts more money in 8 out of 10 Canadians' pockets in regions where it is, at the same time as we fight climate change effectively right across the country.
Hear, hear.
Well, if everything was just going so well, then there wouldn't be a report that was put out that they're actually going to take the SDTC, which is this independent organization that the government set up, and actually bring it back into the government so they have direct oversight of how the funding is actually distributed. So it was so bad, it was so untrustworthy, that they basically said, no, we have to fold up shop and bring it back in.
Do you think that bringing it back into the government will result in more or less corruption?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Especially with this Liberal government. We'll see.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
We already knew that the Prime Minister liked to give tax dollars to his favorite consulting company, McKinsey, a company that helps supercharge drug overdose deaths as part of the opioid crisis. But today we learned from the Auditor General that it's far more money than thought. It was 200 million Canadian tax dollars for this one company. 90% of those contracts didn't follow government rules, 70% of them without a competitive process, 100% of them with the NDP voting in favor. Wow. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister commit here and now no more money for McKinsey?
And you know, this is the problems that have been highlighted by the ArriveCan scandal, is that the purchasing process in the government is completely broken. So you saw the misallocation of funds with ArriveCan. We are pretty sure there was misallocation of funds with regards to the other CBSA big project with Deloitte, which is the CARM project. Now we're seeing the extent of it when it comes to McKinsey, in that 90% of the contracts didn't follow the rules. 70% of them did not follow competitive contract. And remember, what that means is that contracts over a certain value in the government have to have a competitive bid.
That means there has to be at least one other bid.
Right. So, if there's not, you're supposed to have a written justification, a pretty good one too, to explain, well, this is why we couldn't go with anybody else. No doubt what was in those justifications was, well, we can't go with anybody else because these are Justin Trudeau's buddies.
Or they'll expose our corruption.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, obviously the taxpayers deserve to get value for money, which is why we've continued to strengthen our oversight and the measures whereby public servants grant contracts, including to outside consultants. We've reduced those numbers. We're making sure that we're able to both grow the economy and fight climate change at the same time as we ensure value for money. And we will, of course, continue to work with the Auditor General and her recommendations as we move forward. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, we are committed to delivering more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians as we fight climate change with the Canada Carbon Rebate.
Hear, hear.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Trudeau has drastically increased the amount he spent on outside consulting since the Harper days.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that he ran on back in 2015, was that the Harper government was spending too much money on contractors, too much money on consultants. So he's going to make that less. And he hasn't. He's done the exact opposite.
From Thornhill.
After 9 years, the Prime Minister is not worth the cost or the corruption. The AG's latest report found that the Liberal-created Green Slush Fund has been directing tens of millions of dollars into companies owned by, you guessed it, themselves. Their own civil servants called it outright incompetence, but it's worse than that. $123 million of inappropriate contracts, almost half, shouldn't have been given to those companies at all. It's even worse, $76 million connected to Liberal insiders. Is it incompetence? Is it corruption? Is it both? What the hell is going on over there?
Before I pass the floor to the responsible minister, I'm just going to ask members, please, to be very judicious in the words that they choose in this House, to making sure that it is on the right side of parliamentary and as well as polite.
On the right side of parliamentary and as well as polite. Fergus, no one listens to you anymore.
Nobody trusts him. Why would they listen to him?
No, he's making a mockery of the Speaker's chair.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I think Canada is saying how much the Conservative will go when we're talking about climate change, Mr. Speaker. We have been very clear, Mr. Speaker. From the moment that we received allegations, Mr. Speaker, we launched 2 investigations, one by Raymond Chabot, Grant Thornton, and one by the law firm McCarthy Tétrault, and now the Auditor General, Mr. Speaker. We have been clear that we wanted to go to the bottom of this. That's what we've done, Mr. Speaker. And not only we have investigated, Mr. Speaker, we agree with the conclusion of the Auditor General. We're going to restore governance, we're going to restore funding to the clean tech in this country, and we're going to restore confidence from Canadians.
Good answer.
Good answer. No, it was a terrible answer because, again, we covered this, folks, and if you haven't seen those videos, go and take a look. But one of the points that was made is that the now former president of the SDTC, she has since resigned, when Ms. Verschuren, who was actually brought in as chair, was being put forth as a candidate for chair, the president and her team notified the government that they didn't think this was a good idea because it was a conflict of interest. And the minister overruled them. So they had to accept the chair because they don't really have any choice in the matter. So Verschuren was put in, and then subsequently systematically started funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars to her own company. And
she took a bonus.
Yeah, she effectively paid herself, what was it, $120,000? It was over
$100,000, yeah.
Because she gave herself, her own company, $200,000. That's a problem. Big problem. Never mind that they handed out millions and millions of dollars to other companies that did not follow the conflict of interest policy. So, yeah, we will take no lessons from the Chihuahua on this one.
The honourable member from Thornhill.
How rich do Liberals have to get before they solve climate change? Tens of millions of dollars being directed back into their pockets. The Auditor General made clear that it is that minister who's responsible for the scandal. While millions eat in food banks, young people can't buy a home, families can't take a summer vacation, that minister is giving millions of dollars to his friends under the guise of his climate change ideology. Is he actually joking? When will anyone over there face a single consequence for anything?
And the Conservatives are pulling out all the guns today. Like, all the scandals are just being thrown at the Liberals at this point. This is interesting that they're going full court press.
Yeah, our MP was right. They are spicy today.
Yeah, and Landsman asks the question that Canadians from coast to coast want to know the answer to. When is accountability coming?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
I'd like to thank my colleague for the question, Mr. Speaker. You see again the Conservative going, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General's report was very clear. Parliament decided 20 years ago to have an arms-length organization to manage that, Mr. Speaker. We investigated the allegation. We're proposing now a new governance model which will be under the rules of the Federal Public Service, so we can have more rules around HR, more rules around funding, Mr. Speaker. We're going to restore confidence. We're going to make sure that we have a model of delivery that have the highest standard, Mr. Speaker. We're going to fight for the clean tech in this sector.
Yes, good answer.
Yeah, so the Auditor General gave the SDTC, right? This is that slush fund organization. They gave them a clean bill of health after the Harper government, okay? So it was after Justin Trudeau took over that all of this crap started going down. And it was after they appointed a chair that had given Trudeau thousands of dollars for a Cash for Access event. All of a sudden, she seemed to be a best friend of Trudeau, went down to Washington with Trudeau when they visited Trump, and then a short time after that was made chair of this organization. And then all this money started being abused and handed out. So, no, we will take no lessons from the Chihuahua on this because the organization was run just fine before you guys took office. And just like everything else, everything you touch turns to corruption.
The Honourable Member from Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
General report makes it clear that this Prime Minister isn't worth the cost or the corruption. The Prime Minister's billion-dollar green slush fund handed out $123 million taxpayer dollars illegally. And we know this because Conservatives have been fighting against the Liberal cover-up as we've tried to expose this Liberal minister's incompetence. We know that nearly 100 conflicts of interest were uncovered because of the Auditor General's investigation. It's shocking confirmation of corruption, and we know that they're going to try and cover it up. What we need to know today, is the minister going to assure Canadians that not a single dollar of severance will go to the corrupt executives?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, again, let me tell the Canadians, the Conservative at the time, 20 years ago, wanted that to be an independent arms-length organization, Mr. Speaker, from government. That was the delivery model that was chosen, Mr. Speaker. What we have done from the moment we had delegation, we investigated, Mr. Speaker, because we want to go to the bottom of this. We've seen the reports that have come up. We have proactively worked with the Auditor General. We're going to restore confidence. We're going to restore governance in this organization. But one thing, Mr. Speaker, we're never going to let our small and medium-sized business who are fighting for climate change in this country, we're going to fight with them.
Dude, it wasn't the Conservatives that set this thing up. It was the Chrétien government.
Yeah, and it ran smoothly under Stephen Harper's Conservatives because, again, they got a clean bill of health in, what was it, 2017?
Yeah.
And then, again, you guys placed Verschuren in his chair, and everything went to hell in a handbasket.
Annette Verschuren was put in there in 2019, and then all hell broke loose. So I love that he's trying to say that, oh, well, you know, 20 years ago this was set up. Yeah, and you know, it ran just fine for the entire Harper era.
And it wasn't even set up by the Conservatives.
And it only took 4 years under the Liberals for you guys to completely destroy it. What does that say about you guys?
Colleagues, normally this is the kind of energy we'd hear on a Wednesday, but I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, from St. Albert, Edmonton, to please take the microphone when he is recognized by the chair to do so.
For the record, he's talking about Michael Cooper. Just saying.
The honourable member from Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
The only fighting that we've seen from these Liberals is fighting for more handouts for Liberal insiders. Liberal insiders lined up to get rich while Canadians line up at food banks. The Auditor General report makes it crystal clear that this Prime Minister and his government aren't worth the cost or the corruption. $76 million given out to projects connected to Liberals' friends. Liberal friends who were appointed to the slush fund by these very Liberals. Liberals lining the pockets of Liberals. We know all about it after 9 years of this corrupt Prime Minister. Will they stop the cover-up and commit to get Canadians every dollar back?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, here we go, the Conservative again, against our small and medium-sized business in this country. We're fighting for climate change, Mr. Speaker.
Are you kidding me? Here we go with the Conservatives going against the small and medium business, fighting against climate change. Dude, $76 million. $76 million was improperly given to these organizations. Over 100 conflicts of interest. What the hell is wrong with you, Champagne?
As I've said before, once we receive allegation, we initiated the investigation, Mr. Speaker, because we wanted to go to the bottom of this. The CEO of the organization has resigned. The chair of the board has resigned. We demanded an action plan by management. We welcome the Auditor General report. We're going to restore confidence. We're going to restore governance. But we got to make sure, Mr. Speaker, we're always going to be there to fight for small and medium-sized businesses in this country.
Just so everybody knows, that wasn't the sequence that happened. The sequence that happened was actually in reverse, ironically. So the first thing that they found, that they decided to do, is just demand an action plan from management. That was it. And it was only after Conservatives like Michael Barrett and Garnet Jennis and Michael Cooper put pressure through the investigations into this that Annette Verschuren, the chair, resigned. And then after that, the president resigned. That's the sequence of events that happened. And then the president came back and ratted everybody out. And that was the breakthrough moment that they needed in this. And then the Auditor General was called to investigate. And this is what the Conservatives are firing at the Liberals now. It was all the findings that was just released. Anyway, that was something else. So I'll give a hat tip to our MP. I wish I could tell you who they are. Hat tip to our MP. Yeah, that was definitely spicy. And we didn't even get to include everything. Otherwise, the video would probably be about an hour long. But this is really refreshing to see. A renewed focus from the Conservatives to just blast the Trudeau government on lack of accountability and on multiple topics because they need to be called out on everything. So we expect to see this continuing, and it's definitely going to continue tomorrow at committee when Mindone returns to face questions about, no doubt, his lies about the ArriveCan app. So join us tomorrow night, and if you're watching it tomorrow, on Wednesday, June 5th. Join us tonight at 9:30 p.m. on Northern Perspective as we break down committee live.